Hello, everyone, and welcome back to yet another episode of the New Era Lions with David Pyke. I'm obviously your host, David, and I'm so glad that everyone could come back and join me for the show today. Man, sometimes these weeks seem like they take on a life of their own, and they just go on and on and on forever. This week was especially long for me. Had a lot of work, drove literally over 1,000 miles of driving distance over the state of Texas. So, if you guys don't know, I am currently in Texas. I am in the military. I do quite a lot of stuff down here, and this last week was absolutely freaking crazy. Doing some other stuff here around the house, taking care of some family members that are recovering from some dental work. But otherwise, it's been a rather interesting week so far. Nothing too crazy. I see we haven't gotten any viewers just yet, which I'm sure will change here in a few moments once people realize that the show is starting up. But it's kind of funny sitting back and not really having the Lions as far as something we need to pay attention to over the course of the week because, hey, the Lions, they're done, unfortunately. They're not in playoff contention. Even though they finished the season 9-8, they did very well. It's like, hey, we just really don't have much to look at as far as the Lions, as far as playing, practice reports, who's in, who's out, what potentially as far as game plan differences and matchups we have to go through every week. But it is what it is. Hey, Kyle, how's it going? Not much, man. Just, starting the show, trying to get some people to come in before I start hitting some topics here really quickly. Just talking about my week. Hopefully your week was really good. But as I was saying, when I take a look at this whole week, this week was just, it's really odd because once the Lions aren't playing anymore and once football is no longer something that consumes our everyday minutia when we have time, it's something that really it feels like we're missing something. Who's your Gaddy says, yo, what up, all? Not much, man. Glad that you could make it. Colin asks me the question, do I think that Aaron Glenn is going to stay still? So here's the thing, Kyle, that's a really interesting question. That's a really interesting topic because Aaron Glenn is one of those coaches I'm very much on the fence about if I even want him to come back. And I'll tell you why. The reason why is because for the first part of the year, this defense was absolutely trash. The Detroit Lions defense was trash, and it was so bad that even though we did very well at the very end of the year, like from week 9 onward, our statistical output as a defense for those first 8 weeks was so bad. The good defense on the second half of the defense really didn't make much of a dent in getting it back. Now, I'm not going to overlook the work that Aaron Glenn did in the second half of the season, save the Panthers game, but it's like, listen, the one coordinator that I would be willing to bet everybody and their brother and sister and mother and father was wanting to come back was Ben Johnson. Everybody and their brother wanted to make sure Ben Johnson came back. And obviously, the Lions, they decided to give Ben Johnson a raise. They opened up the purse strings. They made sure that he would come back. He is officially back. He's told all teams that he's not interested in becoming a head coach. So we know Ben Johnson for sure is coming back, obviously. Both Aaron Glenn, to answer a question from Who's Your Gaddy, did he meet with a team yet? According to reports, I know that he has met with the Colts. I do know also that he's met with a couple of other teams. I know that he has had an in-person interview with the Cardinals as well. So there are a couple of teams that specifically have requested or have already interviewed Aaron Glenn to be a potential head coaching candidate. But if I'm being entirely honest, I don't think Aaron Glenn's going to get a head coaching opportunity for one simple reason. It's kind of hard to overlook the fact that you have been the leader, the head of a defense that in 2021 was ranked 31st overall, and then in 2022 was again ranked at the very bottom of the league, like 32nd, 31st, 30th, something like that. It's kind of hard to entice teams to potentially give you a head coaching job when you can't even get your defense to excel over the course of a season. And not just a season, but 2 seasons. I find that kind of hard to sell as a potential coaching opportunity, as a potential coaching candidate, and say, yeah, I think I deserve this job, but I couldn't even get my defense to play well enough for a season for 2 full seasons. Now, obviously, we have to take into consideration that the defense wasn't very good in 2021 because, hey, you know what? We were trying to overcome a teardown. We were trying to get rid of some players that still didn't fit our system. And then in 2022, we were trying to bring all these rookies up to speed, which over the course of the year, they were finally brought up to speed, and the defense made some improvements. It made statistical improvements. But still, it's one of those things where if I'm potentially wanting a guy to come in and be my head coach, I want to make sure that he for sure is the guy. Who's Your Gaddy says, yeah, it'd be weird to hire someone who's had no success. I wouldn't say that Aaron Glenn has had no success, but if you're gonna evaluate him based off of his work as the defensive coordinator of the Detroit Lions, it's very hard to make a sales pitch to say, yes, I think I deserve to be the head man when I couldn't even do my job well as the head man of just the defense. Again, there is a whole lot more to the job of a head coach than a coordinator. You have much more responsibility. You have many more things you have to worry about, make sure are in place. And so far, at least from what I've seen, Aaron Glenn has not yet mastered or tackled how to be a successful and proficient defensive coordinator, let alone a head coaching opportunity. Kyle Webb says, do you think injuries got something to do with that? Well, I've said this before, Kyle, when I was talking about the offense a couple of, well, not a couple, but, back in the middle point of the season when I was doing it on my own private YouTube channel, Detroit Lions Forum. That's what I do outside of my work here with Derek on Syndicate Sports Detroit. People wanted to make a whole bunch of accusations and wanted to say stuff like, hey, injuries aren't important. You have to do with what you got. And to a certain extent, I'll agree with that. But it's like, if you're going to honestly expect that the team, the unit, whether it's offense, defense, special teams, whatever the case might be, is going to perform or execute at the same level with all the injuries that it's having, you're foolish. You're crazy. Your playmakers are your playmakers for a reason because they make plays. And when you don't have your playmakers to make plays, that unit is then going to suffer. Case in point, like I was talking about with the offense. When Jared Goff didn't have Amon-Ra St. Brown, Josh Reynolds, DJ Chark, when we traded away TJ Hawkinson, there was about a good 2, 3, 4 week period. It was just rough. The offense was hard to watch. You start talking about how the defense early on was missing all of those pieces that weren't healthy yet, such as Josh Pascal. We weren't using Aiden Hutchinson correctly and all those other things. It's no wonder why things were so hard for the defense in the first 6, 7, 8 weeks. But once we finally figured ourselves out, the defense actually was actually tolerable. It was average, which is exactly what we thought it was supposed to be when the season started. But it took the entire first half of the season before we could even get to that point. I'm hopeful that if Aaron Glenn does come back with another fully heavy defensive draft like I expect is going to be in the 2023 draft for the Lions, that this defense will either be average or above average with an already high-powered offense. This team will make a lot of noise. Possum Boy 9, how's it going? He says, what's up, David? Nice to meet you. Not much, man. Nice to meet you, too. I'm glad you're in the show. So here's the thing, folks. Now that I've actually got a couple people watching, I got a couple people in stream, we're going to get into our topics of the day, of which there are 3. And the first topic I want to talk about is a topic that doesn't directly correlate to the Lions, but it definitely has some importance to the Lions. So obviously, if you're a Lions fan, which we all are, you obviously know that last week before we played the Packers, everybody was scoreboard watching or even watching the football game of the Seahawks versus the Rams. And there have been reports that have come out that say that a lot of people should be ticked off. A lot of people should be upset. Executives are upset about how that game was officiated. And because of that, we have now got a reemergence of a report of an idea that came out, I think it was a couple of years ago, about the NFL potentially instituting the idea of an NFL sky judge. Now, what exactly does that mean? Well, here's the way it would work. A sky judge, in essence, is a how do I put it? It would be a robotic camera or some sort of electronic camera that is watching the game from up above. And if a play is missed, if an infraction is missed, a penalty is missed, or something is missed by the human officiating crew on the ground, the sky judge could then tell the crew, hey, this is what you missed. You need to fix this in a review of a replay or something to that effect. This was actually thought up a couple of years ago, and the NFL just flat out rejected the idea. They didn't like the idea. But now with all the officiating problems that are going on that have really, really heightened themselves over the last couple of weeks, this idea has yet once again come to the forefront as a potential idea that the NFL should institute to potentially get the officiating a lot better in the NFL, which I think it's a good idea. Don't get me wrong. I think it's a good idea because let's just call it for what it is here, folks. We're all human beings. Humans are going to mess up. They're not perfect. They're going to miss things. So I like this idea of the NFL Sky Judge, but according to reports that I've been reading, the NFL doesn't like it because they don't want to have so much power in replay to where it pretty much negates the actual human officiating crew. Now, according to other reports, they're thinking about potentially expanding the replay powers as far as making things challengeable, kind of like a couple of years ago where they made the defensive pass interference calls challengeable. And I don't really think that's a good idea because that was only instituted for 1 year. It wasn't a very popular or very successful change to the rules because I think if I recall correctly, only 21 or 24, something out of 100 defensive passing call interferences were actually overturned. So it's like, realistically, even if you give coaches the ability to challenge to go after a particular play due to replay, chances are very unlikely that it's going to get overturned, which is why I think the Sky Judge idea actually works rather well because it's like, okay, this is what the Sky Judge sees. If it's a clear mismatch, or how should I put this? If it's clear that the NFL refs missed something, the Sky Judge will pick it up and be able to tell them, hey, this is something you missed based upon the rules. That's one potential solution. Now, for some people, they don't like that solution, particularly the NFL, and that's fine. In my opinion, what the NFL really should do is freaking make NFL refs full-time NFL employees. Just get rid of this whole idea of people that have outside jobs become NFL refs. And then it's like, listen, instead of paying these guys salaries or paying, I can't say guys anymore because there's female refs as well. You need to actually make sure that these refs are full-time referee employees of the NFL. Give them a salary. Don't just say, hey, we're going to pay you $500, $600, $700 a game. And then that's what you get paid for being a ref of an NFL game. It's like, no. There are how many freaking games in the NFL? There are 272 games, and they're split up like over what? Like 8 or 9, maybe 10 officiating crews? It's like, dude, you have to freaking make sure that these guys are paid well enough, invest in them well enough, so that way they don't feel like as if, hey, this is just a side job. I don't have to be as invested in it as I should be. Because think about it. Think about the other pro sport leagues, whether it's the NBA, whether it's the MLB. Those referees, they are full-time salary employees of the MLB and the NBA. Now, granted, there's more games in the MLB and the NBA and also in soccer, because I see there's a comment here by Jose that says, do it like FIFA. Those referees have many more games, so there's that argument. But the other side of it's like, listen, folks, the NFL is not just a multi-million-dollar organization. It is a multi-billion-dollar organization. If the NFL is going to simply want to tell me that they can't afford to pay these refs on a salary, I call absolute just horse hockey. There's no way that's even remotely possible to the truth. You can't tell me you can't salary pay these referees a decent amount so that way, hey, they can fully invest in being NFL referees, thus improving the quality of NFL officiating that we see on Sunday. You can't tell me that's not possible. Now, again, the NFL is going to push back on that because they don't want to pay more to an NFL officiating crew than what they're already paying. But to me, it's like, listen, there's obviously a problem here. There's obviously a huge disconnect as far as getting good officiating on the field and affecting the results of games. Because I'm sure y'all have seen the news. I'm sure you've seen TikTok and all these other social media websites that have shown that Joey Bosa, the edge rusher defensive end of the Chargers, he got extremely heated because of the bad officiating that went on with him in his playoff game against the who did the Chargers play? I can't remember who the Chargers played on Wild Card Weekend. I do apologize. But that game right there, that game really upset him. And it upset a lot of NFL fans, not just Charger fans. And the point of the matter is that you have to do something to fix the lack of good officiating in the NFL, especially when you, like I said, you compare it to the MLB, the NBA. There needs to be a much higher standard, a much higher accountability, responsibility from these referees to be like, hey, if you screw up a call, this is going to impact you. Thank you, Jose. They played the Jaguars. Thank you. You have to have some sort of accountability measure for these NFL referees. Otherwise, they're not going to get better. They're just going to continue to stagnate or get worse. We need to find, there needs to be a freaking, there needs to be something done to get this officiating up to a level to where it actually befits the NFL. Gaddy says, bad officiating just should not be a problem that determines an outcome in a matchup. Yes, I absolutely agree with you. There should never be a case where bad officiating or a missed call or a bad call, whatever the case might be, should determine the outcome of a game. That should never, ever happen. Because, I mean, for crying out loud, you go back to the Seahawks-Rams game, which ultimately kept the Lions out of the playoffs. There were multiple calls that were missed or bad calls that were called, which ultimately gave the game in the Seahawks' favor. The worst one was by far when, first and foremost, that roughing or running into the punter call was called, and it was like, dude, the guy got blocked into the punter. That's not running into the punter. And then there was the missed taunting call from DK Metcalf on Jalen Ramsey that didn't get called. I mean, for crying out loud, those two, the one penalty that was called and the one that wasn't called, and then there was the unnecessary roughness on the sideline on Geno Smith. It's like, dude, you talk about all of these penalties that are called or no called. The point of the matter is, if those penalties are not fixed, if the officiating is not fixed, you're constantly going to keep having these problems, and they're just going to get magnified worse and worse and worse. Something must be done. Now, obviously, the NFL is not feeling too much pressure about it because, hey, we're still making money. So why should we change something if we're still making money? Just a thought out there for y'all. Y'all let me know what you guys think in the comment sections. Obviously, for those that show up post-stream, y'all let me know as well, because I'd really like to hear your guys' thought on this, because whether the NFL fully decides to, maybe make NFL officiating crews full salary NFL employees, or they decide to go with the Sky Judge theory, I don't know. But something needs to be done to fix NFL officiating. Something absolutely must be done because it's a travesty. Gaddy says, like you said, they got to pay him to care enough, or along those lines. Jose Zamora says, remember hands to the face at Green Bay? Oh, yeah, I remember that. We got two of them on Trey Flowers, and both of them were clearly not hands to the face. Clearly altered the outcome of that Monday Night Football game. Patty Grimes says, what's up? Not much, Patty. Glad that you could join us. Jose Zamora says, the fake penalty they got at Dallas in the playoff game, I've seen a lot going against the Lions. Listen, let's just call it for what it is. Every team has had experience with bad officiating. But if we realistically want to call it, the Lions probably have the most experience when it comes to bad NFL officiating, whether it's with no calls or just calls that go against us that are absolutely not the case. We've seen it all the time. We've seen it. And you know what? Again, this is part of the reason why I say that NFL officiating needs to be fixed. I'm not saying replaced. It needs to be fixed. Chuck Osborne says the NFL doesn't care less if they fix it or not. They just like the money. Well, I mean, again, as they all say, the NFL is a business. The NFL is all about making money. But here's the thing. The NFL doesn't feel the need to change anything because they are still one of, if not the highest grossing sports league in the NFL, in the United States. And that's with less games than the NBA and MLB. I mean, those guys play practically almost all freaking year in comparison to the NFL. The NFL literally only plays from like September until February. That's not a whole lot of time in comparison to what the MLB and what NBA plays. They play much longer, but yet the NFL still makes more money than both of those leagues. But again, like I said, I'd like to hear everybody's thoughts on it, especially those that come in post-stream and watch the show. Okay, with that being said, we're now going to move into another topic, the other topic of today's show. Before I do, we have a question here from Jose Zamora. He asks, do you think the NFL rigs some games? Oh boy, talk about conspiracy theories. No, I don't think the NFL rigs games because first and foremost, we've seen games that looked like that, hey, if the NFL truly was going to rig matchups, you would think that would be the case. Perfect case in point was when Dallas literally spanked the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in the wild card round. Everything as far as statistical reason, as far as what you'd heard, thought that the Buccaneers were going to win that game. You thought they would win it because, hey, Tom Brady, he's the GOAT. He hardly, if ever, loses in the playoffs. The Bucks have not. The Bucks have. Tom Brady has always found a way to beat the Dallas Cowboys. The Dallas Cowboys have not done good on grass this year. Blah 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 blah. Like all the statistical analysis and reasoning was telling you that Dallas, Dak Prescott, all of them, they should not have won that game. But instead, the Cowboys go out and they absolutely stomped. They spanked the Bucks. It wasn't even a fair matchup for most of the game. So I can understand why fans think that the NFL rigs games, but I don't think they rig them. I don't think they do that, because to do that would, first and foremost, if it ever came out that actually was the case, that right there would have the league lose every ounce of credibility, and it would completely destroy the league. Now, obviously, there's a couple of YouTubes out there where certain players, certain coaches, they've all said, hey, it felt like the game was rigged. It felt like that we were fighting the refs or whatever else. Blah, 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 blah. We've all heard it. But you know what? At the end of the day, the NFL has been around for well over 100 years, and there's very, and I mean very little evidence that actually supports or actually gives credence to the idea that the NFL rigs games. As far as what we can tell, the NFL is very fair in the fact that, hey, you're going to go out and you're going to play. Now, I'm not saying that everything always comes down to being fair. Again, like I just said in the previous segment, the NFL makes bad calls. They always do. The refs always make bad calls. But I sincerely doubt that the NFL goes to those refs and officiating crews and tell them, hey, you're going to make sure that this team wins that game. Patty Grimes says that it's sports entertainment. Well, I mean, yeah, it is. It's an entertainment business. You're going out and you're playing football on primetime television on Monday night, Thursday night, Sunday night football. And then you have all the matchups that are on Sunday at 1 o'clock and at 4 o'clock. It is an entertainment business. Crunch Time says, dude, you're crazy if you don't think a lot of those games aren't Vegas rigged. Sorry, I don't believe that. If you want to realistically think that, Crunch Time, how many times did the Lions beat the spread to defy Vegas? They defied Vegas several times last year and even did it this year. So if you realistically think that the NFL is all about the Vegas betting line, again, there have been cases where Vegas has lost because, oh, that's right, a team beat the spread. They beat the odds. Or, hey, a team that wasn't supposed to win at all somehow found a way to win. Case in point, when the Lions freaking spanked the Cardinals last year, what was it, 31-14 or something like that? You honestly want to tell me that Vegas always gets it right? You're wrong. I'm sorry. There's no credence to your idea there. I'm sorry. Anyway, moving on from the conspiracy theories, let's move in to the next topic of today's show, which is ESPN. So obviously there are several, how should I put this? Sports analyst sites, sports news sites, whatever case you might put out there. ESPN is by far the biggest one. Well, ESPN recently released an article where they put out their top 100 most valuable players in the NFL. Now, here's the thing, folks. When you think about most valuable players in the NFL, you're usually thinking of teams like the Cowboys, the Eagles, the 49ers, the Chiefs, teams like that. Teams that have got a lot of superstars on them, household names, blah, 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 blah. Well, would it surprise you that 3 Detroit Lions players actually got on to the list of the top 100 most valuable players in the NFL this year? That actually surprised me because I thought the NFL's not going to give the Lions any sort of recognition. They're not going to give them any sort of recognition. But in fact, the ESPN article writer said that there were three Lions were in the top 100 most valuable players in the NFL this year. That totally floored me. And what even further floored me was the 3 players that was selected. First player was Jared Goff, quarterback. Next player was Amon-Ra St. Brown, wide receiver. And the last player was Aiden Hutchinson, the defensive edge rookie that we just got. Now, Obviously, I think there should be more Lions players on that list, in my opinion. Penei Sewell should be on that list, definitely, in my opinion. He is by far one of the best right tackles in the business. Absolutely should be on that list. There's a couple of others that I could probably make an argument for, but the biggest snubs, I think, would be Taylor Decker and Penei Sewell. Those two are some of the best tackles, offensive tackles, in this business. They absolutely deserve the recognition to be on that list. But they didn't. What surprised me more so than just that Jared Goff, Amon-Ra St. Brown, and Aiden Hutchinson got on the list was where they were ranked on the list. First and foremost, Jared Goff was ranked number 15 overall on the list, so he cracked the top 20 on ESPN's list. But what made it even further intriguing was that out of all the quarterbacks, Jared Goff was ranked 8th on the list, and he was the highest ranked NFC quarterback in the entire NFL on that list. That floored me. I was like, wow. ESPN, the NFL, really has reevaluated their position on Jared Goff, much like I said they were going to on my private channel, the Detroit Lions Forum. I kept telling people for years, 2 years, a full time, that I kept saying, listen, Jared Goff is a lot better than what these supposed analysts have been telling you. I kept saying it for years. I said, Stephen A., he's wrong. Colin Cowherd, he is wrong. And all these other guys, Dan Orlowski, Chris Sims, I said every single one of these supposed analysts, they are wrong in how they view Jared Goff. And it's funny how after Jared Goff has one good year and kind of gives a shot of life back into his career in this 1 year here in Detroit, oh my Lord, Jared Goff now is a top 10 quarterback for some people again. It's just kind of like, hey, I told you so. But then you take a look at these other guys. Amon-Ra St. Brown, he was ranked number 43rd on that list, top 50. And then Aiden Hutchinson, he was ranked number 80. So it's like these guys actually got some recognition. I think Amon-Ra St. Brown was rated a little bit too low because it's like, dude, the amount of production he's put in just 2 years in the NFL is just absolutely mind-boggling. He got most of his rookie production in the last, 6 or 7 games last year. He had over 100 receptions in this year alone, had over 1,100 yards, 6 touchdown receptions. It's like, dude, in two very short years, he has emerged as one of the best young wide receivers in the game, without a doubt. As far as Aiden Hutchinson is concerned, I think actually he's ranked right about where he should be. He had himself a really good year, 9.5 sacks. He had 3 interceptions, which is absolutely just mind-boggling for a defensive lineman. That has not happened since 1990 when Hall of Famer Richard Dent of the Bears did it. And he had all these other accolades that went along with him. But he is a rookie. Most rookies are not going to get that highest valuable commodity until about another year or two down the road. But the fact that a rookie defensive lineman, Aiden Hutchinson, got into the top 100 of most valuable NFL players, according to ESPN, along with Amon-Ra St. Brown and Jared Goff, that ought to tell you something. The narrative, the mindset, the attitude that the NFL has towards the Detroit Lions has completely changed. It has completely and utterly changed because they're getting that recognition. They're getting that validation. We got ourselves a couple of comments here. Augustus St. Troy says it's too many moving parts to fix football, obviously in reference to the previous segment. Chuck Osborne says that's great that the Detroit Lions players are getting respect. Patty Grimes says that Goff is not as bad as people say he is. Possum Boy 9 says that Goff is only 28. Chuck Osborne says that Jared Goff is a really good quarterback. And again, I have said this before many times on my private channel. I've said that several times because if y'all don't know who I am, for those that are going to watch this post-stream or that are in-stream, I have been probably the biggest Jared Goff Detroit Lions podcaster supporter that is out there. There's no doubt about that. I have taken a lot of personal flack. I've taken attacks. I have gotten people that have made videos that have thrown threats my way because they do not like the fact that I was so pro-Goff when everybody wanted to throw him out the door. I especially don't have any fans over at Woodward Sports, especially with the heavyweights, because I made a video talking about one of them, and they decided to make a video about me. And for lack of a better term, their video didn't do very well. But the point of the matter is that when it comes to Jared Goff, when it comes to the Lions, when it comes to St. Brown, when it comes to Aiden Hutchinson, these players have deserved the recognition that they have gotten. They've deserved the recognition because they put in the work, they put in the time, and you can see the results out on the field. Like I just said with Amon-Ra St. Brown, the amount of production he has put up in 2 very short seasons is just absolutely crazy. It's mind-numbing. It's mind-blowing. The fact that Aiden Hutchinson almost had a 10-sack and 3-interception season in his rookie year, absolutely mind-blowing. The fact that Jared Goff was ranked top 10 in every single statistical category of measure for quarterbacks and was even ranked top 5 in some of them, dude, you would be absolutely crazy if you didn't give the Lions their credit. And to further add insult to injury, let's just take a look at what the Lions themselves as a team did this year, going from 1-6 to 9-8 and being 1 game removed from the playoffs. The Lions have totally gotten and deserved the respect that they're getting, and I cannot wait until next year when we can build further as a team upon that respect and validate it even further. Let's see here. Patty Grimes says, you try playing with a bunch of third-string wide receivers at the beginning of last year like he, in reference to Jared Goff, did. Crunch Time says, sports is may the best man win. Entertainment comes with scripts. Sports, period, has always been built and based on entertainment. He also says, with the technology we have today, there should be no such thing as a wrong call, period. I agree. Again, to kind of go back to the previous segment, the amount of technology, cameras, advanced analytics, and everything else that we have out on the fields today, there should be no reason why there are any bad calls in the NFL or missed calls for that matter. You would think that, I would say again, because we are dealing with humans here, you would think that the NFL should have a standard that 80% of all calls should go correctly. 80% of all calls should be 100% correct. But I'd be willing to bet if people actually sat down and took a look at every single call, every single play, and figured out how many things were missed or not picked up, it would be astronomically horrible how much is missed in the course of a game. Absolutely horrible. So for me, it's like, you know what? I'm not even going to get into that because it's like, listen, like you said, Crunch Time, with the technology that we have and everything else that we have available to help with officiating, we should not have this problem. I totally agree with you. Chuck Osborne says, Dave, I agree with you 100%. The Detroit Lions players do deserve the respect. Absolutely, they deserve the respect. They've earned the respect, especially when you consider how quickly this turnaround has occurred. Because, again, let's just remember here, 2021, the start of 2021, so before the season actually started, we fired Bob Quinn and Matt Patricia. We tore down the roster. And we go 3-13-1 in that season. And then the very next season, we finish 9-8 after starting off 1-6. We absolutely have deserved and gotten the respect that the team deserved. Absolutely. Patty Grimes says the heavyweights are number one Goff haters. They want the shiny new QB, but not the workhorse QB like Goff. Again, I've said this before. Jared Goff is the kind of quarterback that is going to put his head down. He's going to go to work every single day. He's not going to make excuses. He's not going to whine. He's not going to cry. He's not going to complain. He is simply going to do his job. And that is all you can realistically ask from a quarterback is, hey, you come in, you do your job, and we're going to win. And that is exactly what Jared Goff has done since day one of being a Detroit Lion. Bogara says, you only get 2 challenges, 3 if you get the first 2 correct. You should be able to challenge absolutely anything, no stupid limits. Again, I agree. Challenging should be allowed to be an absolutely limitless capacity. It's be like, listen, if I want to challenge something, I should be able to challenge it. Not because, the rules state you can't or can challenge. It's like, listen, if I, for one, saw there was an infraction that was missed, I should be able to challenge to say, hey, this needs to be fixed. Perfect example. Before I even started the show, I was watching a clip of Bill Cowher back in the 1990s or 80s as the coach of the Steelers. And back in those days, before they had the smart pads that they have with the Microsoft tablets, you guys know what I'm talking about. They used to have pictures where they would send the pictures down on paper so the players could look at them so they could start seeing and get an idea of what defenses or offenses were doing, right? Well, in this clip, freaking Bill Cowher has a piece of paper where he's trying to get the refs to see that they missed something, that they completely were wrong. And because of what he did, he ran out on the field. He showed it to the referee. He wound up getting fined $7,500 for doing that. So for people just to think that this is just a current situation problem or just within the last 5 years problem, no. This problem's been going on for a long time. It's just gotten more exacerbated with the fact that we've got television literally everywhere. You have access to smartphones. You have access to news at the touch of your fingertips. It's like, dude, it's just going to get worse and worse unless the NFL does something to fix the problem that's going on right now. And obviously, again, the NFL is getting a lot of push to do something, and the NFL is trying to do a lot of push back. But I honestly think, perfect example, if we continue to see bad calls, missed calls in the NFL playoffs this year, and even all the way up to the Super Bowl, do not be surprised that the NFL feels pressured, not only by the fans, but the owners to do something. Because the NFL executives and owners are already upset enough as it is. If things continue to go south, they're going to have to do something. Because the NFL might be able to do a lot of things on its own, but if an NFL amendment or referendum comes out and the majority of the owners support it, the NFL has no choice but to allow it to happen. Let's see what we got for comments here. Patty Grimes says, get a running QB and not fixing defense and draft is like putting wheels on a car with a blown engine. Yeah, that's very much true. Again, there are people out there that I know, because I've talked to them, they would much rather draft a quarterback at number 6, whether it be C.J. Stroud, Will Levis, Anthony Richardson, any of them. They would much rather draft a quarterback at number 6 than fixing the most immediate problem on this team, which is the defense. And again, I keep reminding people that want to talk like that, hey, what did Brad Holmes and Dan Campbell literally just say no more than a couple of weeks ago? Jared Goff is our starting quarterback. That is about as signed, sealed, delivered as you're going to get about saying that Jared Goff is the franchise quarterback going forward. He's the guy. So when people want to keep throwing this idea out there that the Lions might draft a quarterback at number 6, I keep telling them the same thing. It ain't going to happen. It's simply not going to happen. Stop living in the world of fantasy and come join us back in the world of reality for a moment. Now, with that having been said, I've gotten through my first 2 topics, and I've got one more topic that I want to talk to y'all today. And this topic's kind of intriguing because obviously, as Lions fans know, at the start of the season, the Lions were not given any primetime games. We weren't scheduled any primetime games, obviously, other than the Thanksgiving game. That is a primetime game, but that's a traditional game that we get every year. I'm talking about ones outside of the ones that we're traditionally scheduled for. We weren't scheduled any primetime games. And that didn't change until the last game of the year where our game against the Packers got flexed into primetime on Sunday Night Football. Well, according to a recent report that I just read, obviously the home teams for international games have already been released this year. They've already been released. And one of the teams that has got a home matchup for an international game is the Kansas City Chiefs. Now, some people that are probably watching and listening to this live stream right now are probably wondering, well, David, what in the thunder do the Chiefs have to do with this whole thing? Well, let me remind you here, folks, one of the away games that we've got this year is with the Kansas City Chiefs. So if you do the math real quick with me, 2 + 2, the Chiefs have a home game. The Lions are an away opponent against the Chiefs, and the Chiefs are playing an international game this year. So 2 + 2 means the Lions could, I say again, could get scheduled for an international game this year. Now, according to what I've read, the Chiefs are scheduled to play in Germany this upcoming season. So the Lions could, in theory, be scheduled to play the Kansas City Chiefs internationally in Germany this next year. Now, why is this important to Lions fans? Well, the reason it's important is because the Lions haven't had an international game, I believe, until, what was it, 2013, 2015 was the last time we played an international game, and it was in London, I think, against the Falcons. Something like that. I can't remember. But it's been a long moment since the Lions have gone international and played in an international game. But again, like I've said previously, when the league schedules you for a primetime game, that is a reward. It's a reward because the NFL, like I've said earlier on this stream, and I've said in other podcasts, the NFL is a money business. The NFL is all about making money. It is a business. Well, the best way to make money for primetime games is to put teams out on primetime television that people want to watch because they are successful teams. They've got name brand team players, blah, 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 blah. Well, case in point, you're not going to put a team on primetime that's got a losing record, has no name brand team players, nothing to it. Well, here's the thing. The Lions got flexed into a primetime game this year, which meant that the NFL not only viewed the Lions as deserving of a primetime game, but they also viewed that the Lions matchup against the Packers at the end of the year was a matchup that was highly sought after by the NFL viewing audience. Well, here's the thing. The Lions just finished their year 9-8. They've got a matchup on the road against the Kansas City Chiefs upcoming at some point next year. An international game is the NFL trying to spread its brand. Well, the Lions have already played an international game once before, so they're used to it. But number two, the Lions are an up-and-coming team that a lot of people are starting to take notice of. What better way for the NFL to advertise itself but to say, hey, here are the Kansas City Chiefs, a team that everybody views as favorites. Now you have this up-and-coming team in the Detroit Lions that is gaining a lot of steam, a lot of popularity. We're going to pit them off in Germany, a nation that has a lot of ties to the United States, obviously because of politics, military, economics, and everything else. The NFL would be making a brilliant decision as far as a business aspect to let the Lions play against the Chiefs on an international stage. Now, obviously, the Chiefs have other teams that they're going to play at home other than just the Lions. I don't know who all the Chiefs have as far as home opponents, but I'm just simply stating the Lions are a team right now that are gaining a lot of steam, a lot of attention. They are a very attractive venue for a lot of potential business-making decisions. Think about it this way, folks. The Lions are getting the NFL draft, not this year, but next year in 2024. The NFL draft's coming to Detroit. What better thing to build upon that by giving the Lions an international game in Germany against the Kansas City Chiefs, who are a Super Bowl favorite? Again, it just is a perfect matchup in my mind. I honestly think that the Lions, while it's not guaranteed, I think they should be favorites to get that scheduled international game in Germany against the Chiefs. I really do. Let's take a look at what some comments have here. Chuck Osborne says, I think the last international game the Lions played was the Kansas City Chiefs. Well, I don't remember, to be entirely honest. Like I said, I don't know if it was the Chiefs, the Falcons. I do know it was some team we played with red because it was a couple of years ago. I just can't remember. Somebody can Google it and pop it into the stream. Thank you very much. But the point of the matter is like I said, primetime games are a reward for teams that do well. International games are in essence the same thing because if you're playing international, you have to play earlier than everybody else because of the time zone differences. So in essence, it's a primetime game because you're the only person that's going to be playing at that time. Now, it's not a primetime game in the sense that, hey, nobody wants to get up at like 10:30 in the morning to watch a football game because, hey, that's the time that it's going to be over in London and Germany when you're playing. But the point of the matter is that you're the only football team that's playing at the time that the game's on, which means you are getting primetime billing. You're the only ones playing. So for me, I view it as a reward if the Lions do get that international game. Now, some Lions fans I know would be like, no, we don't want that. Because they're going to look at the success that the Lions had this year and be like, hey, apart from 2 games, we always played at the exact same time. There was continuity. There was the same thing. There was no change. There was nothing that we had to change or alter our game plan for. It was always 1 o'clock Sunday. And I get that. I understand that continuity. I can understand that whole process of, hey, you go with what works. But it's like, listen, the more popular the Lions get, the more successful they get, the more that the Lions are going to have to play outside of that 1 o'clock time slot, that time billing. They're going to have to start playing games later in the afternoon, whether it's 4:25, whether it's primetime games on Sunday night, Thursday night, or Monday night football. And for me, I relish that chance, just like the players said they relished that chance to play primetime football against the Packers. So many of the players were like, yes, we want to play against the Packers in primetime, because they realized the magnitude of the game, but they also realized, hey, primetime, who doesn't want to play primetime football? Like, I never played NFL football, but I can tell you this right now. Playing primetime football, it's dark outside. You're the only ones on television. You're getting the full national media attention. There's nothing that beats that, save going to the Super Bowl. So for me, I view it as a badge of respect that the Lions are getting from the NFL, that they could potentially be in consideration for things like this. Chuck Osborne says that London's game that Detroit played last time was the Kansas City Chiefs, and the first game that the Detroit Lions played in London was the Atlanta Falcons. So, okay, I was kind of partly right and kind of partly wrong there. So, thank you for putting that out there, Chuck. But again, folks, the way I look at it is this. I understand that there are Lions fans that want to keep things the same old, same old. They don't want to potentially risk or upset the balance that the team had this year. But if the team continues to do successfully, like I think they're going to, we have to get used to and accepting of the fact that, hey, the Lions could very well be on primetime television a lot more. And for me, I'm all for that. I want Detroit to get that recognition. I want the Lions to get that validation that, hey, we are good enough that we can play on primetime television. That's exactly what I want. I want to have that recognition. I want to have that validation because we have earned it. We deserve it. A team that has done what this team has done over the course of this year deserves to have those primetime slots, deserves to have those primetime games, has earned and has been validated to get those slots. Because case in point here, think about a team this year. They got all those primetime slots. They got all those primetime games that hadn't earned it. But the only reason they got them was simply because they acquired one flipping player, a.k.a. the Denver Broncos. The Denver Broncos got scheduled, what was it, like 5, 6, 7 primetime games this year, and the only reason they got those was because of the fact that they made that mega blockbuster trade in the offseason for Russell Wilson from the Seattle Seahawks. But you guys all remember how bad were those freaking primetime games? They were absolutely horrible. They were terrible to watch. They were low-scoring affairs. The teams didn't look good, especially the Broncos. So it's like, listen, the teams that should get those primetime slots should be the ones that have earned the primetime slots through consistently playing good. Not just because you make a mega blockbuster trade for a superstar and then you have no idea how he's going to play in his new surroundings, which is exactly what happened to the Denver Broncos. Now, some people are going to say, is it potentially just because, Russell Wilson's falling off a cliff? Was it because of Nathaniel Hackett? I don't care. The point of the matter is that the NFL scheduled the Broncos for all those primetime games, and they did it simply because Russell Wilson got traded to the Broncos. I don't think that's fair. I think you should earn those slots because you've played at such a high level to earn them, not just because, hey, we made a big blockbuster trade, now we get all this attention. But that's just me, folks. Obviously, people are going to have their varying opinions. It is what it is. Patty Grimes thinks that it is going to be Kansas City versus the Detroit Lions in Germany. I haven't heard that being officially made put yet, but I do know that Kansas City is set to be the home team in Germany. So I don't know if that's officially been put out there yet. I'm just spitballing at this point. But I will say this. Today's show is going to run a little bit short because I'm trying to spend time with the family, try to watch over them because, like I said, they just got done getting their wisdom teeth pulled, at least 3 of them. So at the moment, I don't have any more topics to talk about unless y'all have something you guys want to ask me really quickly before I cut the stream. I know currently right now who is it? You're going to hear some clicking here in the background as I try and get to get my mouse to work. Anyway, I'm trying to figure out who is it that's playing right now in the NFL. So pardon me. I know there are a couple of games that are going on right now. Okay, the only game going on right now is Kansas City and Jacksonville, where Jacksonville actually right now is in the red zone, only down by 4 with about 11 minutes left in the fourth quarter. Wow, that's a lot closer than what I thought it was going to be. So, I don't know. I'll just say this right now. Probably the one team, well, not the one team, but I think the two teams right now that are probably surprising the most people in the playoffs right now would be the Jacksonville Jaguars and the Giants. Subsequently, we beat both of those teams. Do y'all remember that? We beat the Jaguars and the Giants. So I think, honestly, the Lions could have won a playoff game this year had we gotten into the playoffs. But once again, thank the officiating crew for the Rams and the Seahawks game, like I talked about at the very beginning of this stream. But it is what it is. Can't cry over spilled milk. Can't hold on to it. Just got to move past it and deal with it as it comes. But anyway, Patty Grimes thinks that the game will be held during Oktoberfest if the Lions get selected to play against the Kansas City Chiefs. We'll see what happens, Patty. Don't know for sure, but we'll see what happens. But anyway, folks, with that being said, I thank you all for tuning in to yet another episode of the New Era Lions with David Pyke. I will be back at the same time, same place next week, unless something changes, at which point I will push that out to Derek, and Derek will put that out to you guys. But until the next time, thank you all for tuning in to yet another show. God bless. And until the next time I see you all, one pride and go Lions.